Hi, book club members. I'm Jen.
And I'm Keri.
And this is Warhammer 40k Book Club, where we read from a crag. This is episode number 115. And our book is Soul Hunter.
Hold on. I gotta lift it.
Get your arm day in. Our book is the first book of the Night Lord's Omnibus, Soul Hunter, by Aaron Dembski-Bowden. It tells the story of First Claw, of the ragtag remnants of the 10th Company of the Night Lords as they boldly navigate this bold new world. I don't know. I was going to go somewhere clever with that. We posted several questions on our website, WH40kbookclub.com, and we encourage participation in our conversations via YouTube, Twitter, or Encrypted Vox channel. Spoiler warning for a book that came out about 10 years ago. If you somehow have missed this gem, what are you even doing with your life?
Hey!
Fix the problem, then come back here and read this book, because now you've read this book, so I can throw shade. We'll be discussing it from start to finish in great detail. As always, Keri, be gentle with me, since this is like my favorite book of all time. Did you like the book?
Well, I certainly know why you did. I'll put it that way. It was very well written.
What even does that mean?
I don't know if I liked it. And I say that in that it was incredibly well written, but I just, the Night Lords are just, they're not my cup of Darjeeling. I think that I like the way that he presented them, but at the same time, I'm reading this, like the whole thing with the claws, like the first and second claws, like how heavy-handed are you guys? And then I have to remember this is the Warhammer 40k, where they do have the subtlety of a 2x4. I mean,
you only say that because Shen goes to kill Conrad Kurz. I want everyone to know that
that reference. That's supposed to reference something, and I don't.
Martin Sheen plays the character who goes to kill Colonel Kurtz in Apocalypse Now, which is written by Joseph Conrad.
Okay.
Kurtz, Shin, Martin Sheen.
No,
it's not very subtle.
Never read it, never heard of it. So there we go. So
Heart of Darkness?
I read Heart of Darkness, but I never saw.
That's what Apocalypse Now is based off of.
Okay, well, I read Heart of Darkness a long time ago and probably forgot a lot of it.
That's fair.
Yeah, so
I love Heart of Darkness. But yeah, it's not a subtle universe.
So I do remember liking Heart of Darkness, but it was very, very long ago. It's not a book that I went and reread. I'll put it that way.
Totally fair.
But so I found some of that stuff was a little heavy-handed, and I still kind of find the Night Lords. I have been trying to understand throughout the Horus Heresy. Drink. Why the Night Lords went to the other side. Because they didn't seem to really have a reason. And I don't remember which, again, these books are all meshing together with me. But, the book where Conrad Kurz flips out at Dorn, practically kills him, where he's just like, oh, crap. Like, did not mean to do that. I don't even know what just happened, but I have to go because everyone's going to kill me now. They're not going to understand. Well, no, sorry, hun, they wouldn't understand. And then he decides, you know what? I've tried with Nostromo and that place just sucks. So I'm just going to blow it up. And so I was initially thinking, well, maybe that's why he left, because he got to the point of no return. He nearly killed Dorn. He blew up a whole planet. All right. Maybe that's why. But then with these guys, when they're talking about, like, they really believe the Emperor betrayed them. And at first I thought it was because the Emperor killed their father, but then they made it sound like that was why they left in the first place, was because of his betrayal. So to me, it's like, okay, I think you guys are being a little petty. I'm not exactly sure what is entirely going on with you guys. I understand a little bit why you're being petty now, because the Emperor killed your father, even though he told you this was going to happen. And then he even said, which I did love this quote of, do you really think I care what happens to you guys after I die? Like, you guys mean nothing to me. Let's be real. And yet they're still just being like kind of petty about it. It's, I don't know.
They're very so yeah, so essentially there's a few things that happen during the heresy, right? Is that you have Conrad Kurz, who as soon as he meets the emperor, he knows his future. The emperor is going to have him killed, right? And he's going to ascend to godhood. Now, of course, because Conrad doesn't really know how to interpret visions or understand what to do with those visions, as if you read the Conrad Kurz Primarch novel, drink, the emperor specifically talks to him about that. But so he has that, right? So of course they're like, oh, this is just all bullshit because, we're going to fight in this crusade for this grand world with no gods and he's going to kill us and ascend to godhood anyways. And then you also there was a little bit of bitterness in there when they talk about like how every time they started showing up to worlds would just like throw their hands up and be like, nope, we want no part of the Night Lords. You don't even have to fight us. You don't have to come down here. And you have a bunch of warriors who are like, but we wanted to go fight. And now they can't, right?
Okay,
so I understand.
So that's what they consider the great betrayal being? Is that from Conrad Kurz's vision? Which again, it kind of comes to, well, how do you interpret that vision? Because we know what ascending to godhood, what that means. He didn't actually ascend to godhood, right? He's become revered as such. It's a quote from Return of the Jedi.
And he's okay with it.
It's true from a certain point of view.
Right. Exactly. And it goes back to, it works very well with Horus's vision, right? When he turns to the dark side to continue with our Star Wars.
Well, when he sees the 9 Primarchs, he's like, but where am I? Without even thinking that perhaps if he choose this path, that was because Erebus is a dick. This is known. And Erebus pushed him to be like, yes, you were forgotten about. Even though like the reason why you were is because of this future Erebus is pushing you down.
Right. And I think a lot of it, I'll be really honest, my personal headcanon for the Night Lords and kind of interpretation is, I think there's a little bit of bitterness there. I really do think there's a little bit of bitterness there that their father did not love them. They did not. And, Malkarian even mentions it in this book when he's talking about how, like, he doesn't have any of the bitterness. He doesn't have the hatred. He doesn't have any of that. He's just kind of meh. But that bitterness is key to the Night Lords. And I think a lot of it is projection. I think the fact that their own father did not love them. He did not care. He didn't care about any of this. And their lives are kind of pointless. They go into this further later in the Night Lords series, but they kind of touched on this already. They're basically pirates. They show up, they scare some people, they take some stuff, they go on. Yeah. And it's not like they're not in it with Abaddon. Like, Talos basically tells Abaddon that. Not really in it for your whole, let's go back to Terra and take over Terra thing.
Except for the Exalted, which you have to wonder how much of that is really what Vandred wants or what the Tzeentch demon that's inhabiting his body wants.
Right. So we're bouncing around through our questions here because, conversations and all that. But so let's rounding out this thought of the depiction of the Night Lords. Do you understand them better? Do you like them at all? You're just like, nope, these guys are crazy.
Sure. I kind of was understanding them after a little bit of, was it Unremembered Empire? Again, they're blurring together. But it's when Kurz is telling Sanguinius about all these visions he has and how he feels that his father feels about him. And you kind of see kind of how he's broken. I was like, okay, now I'm kind of understanding a little bit more. He's, at the same time, I can't help but find it petty because he's like, well, my world is broken, so I'm going to break your world too. And while I found some of these Night Lords fun, there were a couple of characters I really did enjoy. I really did enjoy Syrian. He's probably my favorite character. My other favorite character was Malkarian, but then he gets killed, so that just pissed me off. I was like, well, I got no reason to read any more of these. Just because
Technically, he was already dead.
I know, but man, what an entrance he made, and I just loved his attitude with things. Fire. I just loved his attitude with things, like how he even talked to Talos, and he was just like, do you really think you were the only one that got special conversations? And do you really think that your interpretation of these visions, is perfect? Do you really think that our father's interpretations were perfect? No.
I
And
liked that because Talos has to be like, oh, his were flawed too, and Malkarian's like, yes, stupid. Like he has that, he embodies that, because one of the things I really like about a lot of the Night Lords, and you'll see this more as we go through the series, but Mercutian is kind of like Malkarian in that there's an odd sense of nobility to them. I mean, they call Malkarian the War Sage, right?
mhm.
He wrote all of these books. They're not all sociopathic killers. He's not a good guy. I don't want to go have dinner with him or anything like that. But there is there's some of them that have this odd nobility to them. And
Yes,
Malkarian,
like a Halaskar was kind of that way as
yes.
well.
Um, I love when he calls Vandred a worm. Like, you've always been a worm. Oh, rude.
I did like Halaskar.
Yeah.
Like, honestly,
Some of them have that nobility and that sense of, I'm not crazy. I'm not a good person, but I'm not crazy.
right, which I thought that, that Talos, yeah, he wasn't a good person, but he wasn't crazy. Yeah, he got these visions. That kind of sucks. And the same thing with Syrian. Syrian's got this weird ability, to sense and hear fear in people, but he's not, well, right. But he's not crazy, at least not yet. Uzas is crazy.
Uzus is straight up crazy. Because,
And
again,
nobody liked him. So
no, because he's a corn worshiper, and I love how everyone's just like, yep, he does that every time. Just ignore him. Like, okay,
I guess one thing
sure.
I will say about the Night Lords that I really did enjoy learning was how they're not really like on Abaddon's side. They're just kind of like whatevs, because we're with the Exalted and he tells us where to go and this is where we're on his ship. All right, sure. So we're doing this. But they're very much like, we are not aligning with chaos at all. Like Talos, he even gets, courted by the four gods. I loved Nurgle's. He's like, you got nothing.
Loved that.
Like, I really don't even want to be here, so peace.
I want you to know that is one of my favorite scenes that ADB has ever written about, and I forgot about that scene until I was rereading it, and then I was like, oh my god, I forgot about this scene. Because Nurgle, I love that he's like, you're never going to worship me. I don't even know why I'm here. Like, I like to imagine Reuven's going to have to answer for that later because, nobody likes to be called for no reason, but I kind of like how Talos is basically like, yeah, don't let the door hit you. The way out. Like, be gone. And I do like, too, how it actually was a little piece of the gods. And he's just like, you're just some lesser bullshit.
Yeah, he was like, I don't want anything.
It's
like, I don't want anything. There's nothing you guys can offer me. And and the funny thing is, like, they're showing him. There's so many biblical allegories in this, to be totally honest. Like, that whole scene was very much like, when Satan's tempting Jesus out in the desert, right? Look at all of this I can give you. If only you bow down and worship me. And Jesus' response is, get away from me, Satan. Because he doesn't want any of that. He doesn't want to have power. He doesn't want to rule. Neither does Talos. Like, we'll make the Legion worship you. He's like, I don't want that.
Right. They don't know how to court him.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because, like, with the Karn one, the Karn one is particularly funny to me. Like, when he talks about him basically looking like an ape, right? And he's like, at what point, and even you, like, at that point in the book, you don't even really know this character, and you're like, that's not what he wants. Like, the closest thing to anything that he probably wanted was the Tzeentch, and even that was not.
Tzeentch was offering him power and rule, and he's like, I don't want any of that. Not
and
only
then
that,
Slanesh is all navel-gazy, like, decadence, and he's like, no.
Because he could tell from meeting this Tzeentch demon that, yes, you're the one that's basically inhabiting Vandred, and he wanted nothing to do with that. Like, what happened to Vandred disgusted him.
Oh, yeah. And Vandred's insistence that he's fine. So, okay, so you mentioned a good point here, is that, so this book comes well before the Talon of Horus. I think it's written 3 or 4 years before Talon of Horus is written. Did you like ADB's portrayal of Abaddon in this book versus the one that we see in the Black Legion series? Was it totally different? same, but from a different point of view?
It seemed different, but the more that I'm thinking about it, so the Abaddon from the Black Legion, he's just starting, right? Because at the very beginning, when they find him, like he's on the vengeful spirit, like, you know, he's got his hair down and, you know, he's all listening to Annie Lennox and shit, just all this, you know, mopey. And
No
then
more I love you.
and then he's starting to come around a little bit and starting to take control. And honestly, so in this, where I see it from where it is with these crusades, so far along in the crusades, or the Black Crusades, is that he is so used to getting his own way at this point, he's become a child in many, many ways. So it's just more like, it's more of the evolution of Abaddon as he came from the Black Legion.
Yeah, that's fair. One of the things that I really liked is when Talos is like, all of your Black Legions fail and you suck. Fail, Abaddon. And Abaddon's like, are you in my inner circle? You know what my final goals are? Like, who the hell do you think you are? That's the only point where you kind of see like, and I do like how you can see like in the beginning, he's just like, hey, buddy. And in the middle of the conversation, he's like, okay. And by the end, he's done. He's done with this. It's like, ugh, why am I even talking to this person right now? One of the evil necessities he must do as the War Master, right? Okay, get your licks in. I don't really give a shit. I just want your people, and especially you because you're a prophet. It's pragmatic, but you're not wrong. There's a childishness to it through that pragmatism.
Well, just that he's not wrong, right?
Right. No.
When they're starting to pull, it's like the Blood Angels are here. Like this is not going to work. Like we have to go and regroup. And he's just like, nope, spend your lives. And like, well, you're not down here. You're not doing any of this. Honestly, my favorite thing with the whole thing was in Abaddon. He's like, you know, when he was saying like, you don't know what I have planned because for this crusade, and Talos is like, oh, this time, that cracked me up.
Oh yeah, that was particularly good. I do like one of the things that's very telling to me, and I think especially with Abaddon, and this speaks so much to him, like as a larger portion, is when they're like, we need to get out of here, we need to get out of here, and Vandred is like, no, we can't because he'll never forgive us. And I think it's Halaskar who's like, he's gonna need allies. Yeah, he's gonna forgive us.
Well, I think Zarl was just like, I don't care. And yeah
Zarl's like, I don't give a shit.
And like Talos, yeah, he was like, he needs allies. And Malkarian was like, yes, that's exactly right. And Halaskar was like, I barely wanted to be here anyway. No.
Well, and I love that Vandred, this is we'll talk more about this in a second, but one of my favorite scenes in this is how Vandred is like, but the War Master. And then Reuven comes on screen and he's like, you know what? No, we're getting out of here. Nope, we don't like any of you people. Goodbye. How dare you ask us to stay here and spend our lives? As you said.
I wondered if that was what triggered the change. Because like he was so adamant that they were going to stay.
Oh yeah. So let's jump in there really quickly and talk, because we see a lot about Talos and Vandred both as leaders. They're different personalities, Night Lords personalities. And there's a lot in these books about who should rule the company, the remnants of the company. Malkarian's in a dreadnought and did not want to wake up. That was one of my favorite details, by the way, when they're like, we've tried to wake him up 4 times. He does not want to wake up. But he did that time. That's how big of an asshole Vrall was. Just so we're clear here. But there are 2 very different leaders. Who should lead 10th Company?
Talos. Just because he's the only one that has like a calm and collected head, because obviously Vandred, he's not himself. He might have been a great captain once, but he's not listening to the Legion, right? He's playing to the tune of someone else, even though everything is just fine. Yeah, well.
He controls this.
Yeah, no.
It's cute that you think you do.
Yeah, because he talked like the more, and they talk about how he moves, and how he's just kind of like, I imagine him as this gigantic slug with like a bird head in a way. The way that he moves, because he can't fit in anything. And they're like, well, why, Halaskar is like, well, why aren't you down there fighting? Like, well, have you seen the guy? He's like Jabba the Hutt at this point. That was how I imagine it. He can't do anything. He can't go down there.
Yeah, I imagine him being so mutated. I imagine him more of like if you've seen Men in Black,
Mm-hmm.
like the end stages of Vincent D'Onofrio, where it's nothing fits quite right, and he's
Oh,
getting bigger, and like everything's just kind of not right.
oh,
Um,
the way the skin is hanging.
yeah, and then like at the end when the bug kind of pops up out of him more, and you really see that like
Yeah.
hunched. Yeah, like that's what it kind of reminds me of. Um, Either one's probably correct because it's Zinch, and who friggin' knows. Um, but I thought Vandred, the thing that's so disappointing is that there are moments, right? Like at that end scene, that whole end sequence when he's like, Halisker, get out of here. I'll get your people.
Yes.
And he takes a tremendous risk with the Covenant of Blood. And it works out because he knows his ship. He knows void combat. He also, that's a moment of great leadership, right? Where he's like, yeah, you go, I'll do this.
Well, and the same in the beginning, but the void combat in the beginning.
Yep. It's a nice bookend because you spend the whole book just really not liking him. He tries to kill Talos. He's bowing and scraping to Abaddon.
Mm-hmm.
Please, please, please. And then in that end there, no, never mind. Not a great leader, but you can see the echoes of what was probably a great leader.
Of why they would
Um,
follow Vandred in the first place. You know, when Malkarian couldn't serve as captain anymore.
right. Talos, on the other hand, like I like him, but
I
one
think
of
he's
the
a reluctant leader. Like he just wants, like as he said when I forget the other guy's name from the other company that he'd merged, and he was like, "Well, you go on ahead and lead because you were squad leader." He's like, "Well, everybody will follow."
Adamar,
Yeah, Adamar. He's like, "But everyone follows you." He's like, "I don't want it. You lead." Because, and he even said that several times. He's like, "I don't want to lead. I want someone to lead." And Vandred's
right?
not leading.
He's an apothecary, and it's a weird thing. One of the things that's most interesting to me about Talos as a character is that there's a humility there of I don't really want to lead. I don't want to be in charge. Somebody else needs to be in charge. I'm an apothecary. But on the other hand, there's also a tremendous arrogance, right? As you said, when Malkarian basically has to be like, "Do you think you were the only person
Mm-hmm.
that Dad talked to? Really? You think that? You think that your visions are flawless, even though our fathers were flawed?" Like, and he's like, "Oh, I hadn't considered that." Really? Like, there's a tremendous arrogance of, I know the direction of our legion. I know what our father wanted. I'm going to do my own thing, right? I mean, the
Even though
entire,
he didn't follow his father's last wishes, right?
even the fact that his sobriquet is Soul Hunter because he doesn't follow the wishes of his father. That's his whole bag. And yet, so it's like this weird, like, arrogance mixed with humility that pick a lane, my friend. It's almost like people are complicated. Um, Even made up people. Uh, it's a nice balance to him. But I read about him and I'm like, no, you shouldn't be leading either, my guy. Adamar probably would have been pretty good.
Well, because Zarl can't.
Nobody in First Claw.
I mean, Zarl can't lead. Syrian can't lead. Yeah, let's have Uzas lead. No.
They will be up to their elbows in blood. And I want everyone to know if you've ever read this story by ADB, A Rose Watered with Blood, which describes basically what happens to the Conqueror once Khorne is really taking over. They talk about these giant, like, not maggots, it's like lice or something like that that are like filled with blood and they're just. Anyways, that's what you'll get with Uzis. Uzis will make sure to bring you, you will have those, like the fleas, giant corn fleas all over you. Haunts the dreams, you guys. Haunts the dreams. That's what you'll get
There's
with
got to be a
Uzis.
cornflakes joke in there somewhere, but I couldn't figure out how to get it in
Probably
there.
is. With Syrian, yeah, it's going to pretty much go towards Slanesh. Vandred, we're seeing lots of Tzeentch influence. Zarl, is a little caustic, let's say. Mercutian Rob, I mean, we haven't really seen enough of him yet to really know from this book whether or not he would make a good leader. Adamar was probably the most level-headed of all of them, and well, we saw where that went. It's the price you pay for being a level-headed Night Lord.
It's true.
Switch over to our human companions for a hot second, shall we? Did Octavia and Septimus add some much-needed humanity to this book?
I thought that was fascinating.
Or were they filler?
I really did. I found their story fascinating, especially Septimus's outlook on things. You know, it begs the question about, you know, yes, they're heretics, but they don't worship the chaos gods. So it's like, so where exactly does that leave Septimus, I guess, in terms of his soul, I guess? Because he's not going to be eaten by the chaos gods. That's for sure.
That's true.
But is he going to go by the Emperor's side? Who knows? He's just doing what it takes to survive. And he's fortunate that he actually has like a level-headed master.
Right.
Who actually does care about his slaves of all the weird things. He actually does care.
It's such an odd personality quirk. Can we just talk about that in general for First Claw? Uzus accepted. Syrian is actually polite to Septimus
very
and
polite.
Octavia.
Yeah.
Zarl is even polite to them, and I don't get the impression that Zarl's polite to a whole lot of people.
But I think
it's a weird affectation.
But I think the reason why is something that Septimus explained to Octavia before she really became Octavia was just like, they have finite resources and they just can't go get new slaves. So they do need him to be a good pilot and an artificer. So yes, they're going to take care of them because, as they say quite often, resources are scarce. So he grabbed her because it's like, we need another navigator. We don't have one. I mean, we do have a navigator, but you know, he's old. Who knows? We should always have a backup. Always have a backup navigator. The same thing with the princeps.
Yep.
We need one of these.
Yeah, you know, just collect. They're like magpies.
Yes,
just collecting everything they can.
I think it's like Talos when he had that vision. He was first poisoned and he saw his armor completely unpainted from the midnight clad and saw like the Harlequin basically patchwork of all the different colors of where his armor came from because there have to be scavengers.
Yeah, it's an interesting, but it also, I like that Septimus, and you could tell a little bit of Stockholm syndrome here, but this idea of, well, look at all the stuff that I get to do. I'm an artificer. I get to, artificer. God, I couldn't even say that word for a second. I get to work on this man's armor. Like, I would never get to touch an Astartes armor otherwise. I pilot a Thunderhawk. Do you know how many people pilot Thunderhawks?
Mm-hmm.
Not a lot of them. And for Eurydice, or I guess Octavia, nay Eurydice, this idea of, you always wanted to pilot an Astartes vessel. You damn sure weren't going to do it in the Imperium. Like, you were on a low level ship from a low level house. Like, yes. Okay, there's the constant threat of violence on the ship, right? And Uzus definitely should not be trusted. But on the other hand, if you can make do with that and make do with the fact that you're not in the Imperium, they're not the worst people. You're not going to sprout a tentacle all of a sudden.
It's true.
Because they're worshiping Tzeentch, right? You don't get the impression that Talos is just one day going to be like, you know what? I need some more power. Come here, I'm going to kill you right now. Like, there's a sort of weird nobility and a weird pragmatism to it.
Well, we need the resources. Like Estrella said to her, it's like, it's in your blood. You have to pilot a ship. So this is what you're going to do.
Yeah, very much so. And I like their story because it's a nice reminder that even on the Chaos ships, and this is one of those things that continually fascinates me, is
I can barely call it a Chaos ship. Because when I think of Chaos ships, like I think of Vork's ship, right? I think of the Conqueror. I think of
Right.
hell, one of the Thousand Suns ships that has like, it's almost got like a demon living inside of it as it is. Like this one's actually pretty clean as much as it
Right. In
can be.
terms of, yeah, you're not wrong. Because again, there is that sort of, we don't worship chaos. We're not inviting demons into our ships and stuff. And Forks' ship, when they talk about like the squishy floor. Anyways, haunts the dreams. Sometimes I think I have too weak of a stomach for Warhammer 40k. But then I read this book and it's like my favorite book ever, so maybe I don't. That is definitely true about their ship, but I'm always fascinated by the small world, like the city that basically grows in the underbelly of a ship. There's a black market, there's an entire economy there.
Mm-hmm.
There are people there who do very important things, right? Like they have an entire ecosystem that supports these Astartes. It ain't safe and it ain't great, but it is there. And I liked that through Octavia and Septimus, you get to see that even on a chaos ship, this is still very much a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And there are glimpses of civilization and society. Glimpses of it.
If you think about it, they said they only had 30 Astartes on the ship, right?
Right.
And how many tens of thousands of people are on the ship? Because they talk about that all the time with these big ships. How to even get them run, they need tens of thousands of people.
Right. Exactly that. And again, you need a literal army to support these 30 warriors.
Mm-hmm.
And it's through them you get to see that humanity. And of course, the Voidborn. The Voidborn is such an interesting concept in general that there hasn't been a child born on this ship before this one, really. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, it doesn't end well for her. But it's nice humanity. And it also reminds you that Septimus is still very much not a bad guy at all. He is definitely, what's the word I'm looking for? He is definitely, by the Imperial standard, corrupt.
Mm-hmm.
But he personally isn't.
Right.
And their budding friendship is nice. This idea that, oh, a new person for me, for Septimus, right? It's like, oh, God, a new face who's not, like those down there. And for Octavia, oh, this is my friendly guide through this ship. That makes it look normal.
Well, he talked about how lonely he was. Now he has a friend.
Now he has a friend who happens to be female with a third eye on her forehead. We can't all be perfect.
And beggars can't be choosers.
No, they cannot be. So let's talk about the whole soul hunter thing, because they really do talk about it, and then they draw pictures for you in the end. What did you think about Conrad Kurtz's ending?
Well, actually, all I could think of is, honestly, it's like another biblical allegory, right? You will deny me 3 times before the cock crows. Well, and Simon Peter's like, I would never do that, Lord. Well, here you go. I would never do that, Father. And then he does it anyway.
Right.
That was honestly my first thought. I do think it's funny that Conrad Kurz never even tried to alter his fate, just took it. And it almost makes me wonder if he was just like, he was a fatalist, or if he just wanted to die, to be honest. Look at all the things.
I think a bit of both.
Because everything I watched him do on The Unremembered Empire and, oh my gosh, I can't remember the other book with the lion hunting him, it's like, does he just want to die, or is he just like, well, I'm going to die anyway, so I might as well have like a fun time before it goes? It's really hard for me to say.
I think it's that he's a fatalist who wants to die, but I think that because he knows in his heart, he knows the Emperor is killing him. So like he goes down to, let's take the Unremembered Empire for an example, right? He knows Bob and Lion aren't killing him. His father's gonna kill him, so he can do whatever he wants. Like, yeah, sure, come kill me.
Because
You're not going to.
when it got to the trial and they're like, yes, we're killing him, and he was flipping out. He's like, this is not how I die. You can't kill me. This is not how it happens. And they're like, shut up. We're totally doing this. And then the Lion shows up, is like, wait. Actually,
Yep.
the Emperor's alive. And then that book ended with Conrad Kurz laughing. So
Right.
it's like, are you? So I kind of go back and forth. Like, are you really a fatalist, or are you just one of those, like, you'd actually kind of read about in X-Men comics, and you get these visions and they torment you so much you just want to die so it will stop.
It could be part of that. I think also there is, going back to, it's almost a pettiness that borders on passive aggressiveness of, I saw my father gonna kill me, so by God, that's what's gonna happen, and I'm gonna make it happen because that'll prove a point.
Because he probably could have killed Im Shen.
Oh, easily. And she even thinks that as she's leaving that, yeah, okay, she recognized that he let her kill him. He easily probably could have dismantled her. But he doesn't. I mean, she gives Talos a run for his money. But again, there's this pettiness and this just tiredness where he talks about how I hate this Legion. In the Primarch book, they talk more about that too, about how much he hates his sons. He hates everything. He hated Nostromo.
Well, what was that?
He just wants to be done with this.
I think there was that when he was telling him, yeah, I destroyed its world to stem the flow of poison. It's like I hated everything about this. I hated where I came from. I hated that they made me like deal with all of you guys coming from the same place. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. There's so much bitterness and
it makes me wonder, like, who hates their Legion more, him or Angron?
Honestly, I think Kurz does. Kurz, like Angron, it's more of like, meh, I don't give a shit. Kurz, there's an actual hatred. I hate these people, right? And of course, after Sevatar, yes, I totally buy into the philosophy that, or the theory that he became the 8th original Grey Knight. After Sevatar exits stage right, and he's left with, he has some people who are good, right? But then he's got Zosha Hall, who, that friggin' guy, who immediately, like, and I loved when, and you can kind of see that hatred creeping into Talos at the end there, right? Where he's like, yeah, now they're all screaming about the crown and the cloak and the sword, and where is our stuff? Where is our stuff? Who's gonna lead us? And he's just like, holy shit, this is exactly what my father was worried about. It sucks. For every like noble and dignified Night Lord, you've got like 4 or 5 just animals.
I have to say though, if Im Shen hadn't taken souvenirs like that, she might have gotten away.
Yeah. She might have. Talos is a good... Okay, so I think everybody knows I have a major thing with eyes. Eyes are... Because I'm blind in one of them.
Oh, when he
eye
spits
stuff
on her?
bothers
That
me.
was great.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
And she talks about hearing them sizzle. I'm just like...
I have a thing with eyes as well, and that about broke me.
Eye injuries are not fun. The whole idea when she's describing Leafy, but she's a professional, so she's just like clinically like, oh yes, they're sizzling. That really kind of sucks. Anyways, moving on. Like, and yeah, she still almost gets Talos. But yeah, had she not decided to,
and he screams so loud he ruptures her eardrums, and she's now deaf. I'm like, damn, dude. God.
They know how to torture. What can I say? There's a lot to be said there. I thought it was good, but let me ask you this. Did it add anything to the story? Were you like, hell yeah, this is important? Or was it more like, oh, this is interesting?
I think it explained him a little bit better. You know, kind of his attitude, how people treat him. because yes, he does have these visions that are very accurate if he interprets them correctly. But at the same time, he's the one who disobeyed their father.
It's always an interesting little character note to him. And I think it does a really good job of kind of explaining, because like we all know that the traitor legions are basically all fractured. They're all little war bands, right? So, but given everything else, the way that they talk and the way that they kind of act, excuse me, and think, they you kind of have to wonder, like, well, why aren't you guys more cohesive? And then I think that kind of sets it up, right? So you're like, oh, this is why we're where we're at. And this is why he has some of this baggage and why the Legion treats him a little weird and why he thinks this. And this is why there isn't a big central figure to the Night Lords. Zosha Hall is probably the closest one. Again, since Sevatar became a Grey Knight. In my headcanon. Go back and read that scene in the Emperor's Gift by ADB.
Okay. I don't know what scene you're talking about, but
when he's talking about the statues of the original Grey Knights, and at the end, I think it's the last statue. He talks about him sitting. The guy is like leaning up against a halberd, and he kind of has this like arrogant like slouch to him. Yago Sevatar that was his weapon of choice. Powerful psyker.
Okay, see, I haven't heard that theory, so obviously, and I didn't know very much about all that at that time in reading that book, so that would have totally gone over my head.
It's my personal theory that I really enjoy. Well, it's not my personal theory. I read it, I think, on Reddit years ago. But I'm like, oh, this all makes sense. And I just want one of my Night Lords to have done something good. Like we have, have Dan
he was best buddies with Sigismund, so you know.
And I need another character like Dantioch. Badass from a Legion who I love, who decided to be loyal. I need this in my life.
And then he got killed anyway. Still haven't forgiven Abnet for that one.
Rude. And fair. So, are you excited for the next book?
No. And let me tell you why.
Oh no.
The Eldar. Till I saw the Eldar in this, I'm like, I'm out.
That's fair. The Eldar are in the next book. However,
because it just seems like out of left field. What? Okay, sure. Why? Because
they go into it in the next book. Why? Ugh. And also it's because it's the Eldar. Cause do you need a better answer than that? Cause
yes.
They also don't like people who look into the future, and they're just dicks. Right. They are obviously they're the main antagonist of the next book, but the next book goes into other stuff as well. But that's a fair reaction. I kind of forgot that the Eldar are in the second book. I wanted to put them in the third book, and so I was like, oh right. But
just the epilogue was just like, well, where'd this come from? No idea. Or, all right, sure, whatever.
Obviously, I'm excited for the second book. But this one made me remember why this is one of my favorite books.
I do have to make a quick note here about the Audible version. So,
please do.
Yeah, so I had to go down for an archery tournament this past weekend. So I got the Audible version so I could finish it, and I had never heard this particular narrator before, but oh my God, he was amazing. And I was liking him already, but then you get to the part where Vral is attacking Syrian and Zarl. And so you have Malkarian's entrance. The narrator actually makes the sound effects of the bolter weapons and the attacks.
Andrew Wincott?
Yes, yes. But I'd never listened to anything he's done before. But man, if you haven't heard this on Audible and you hadn't read this book yet, I can't recommend this version enough, because I know that the omnibus is kind of hard to find if you don't want to do an ebook.
He does a lot of voices in some of the audio dramas, which is kind of neat.
That would make sense because how he switches, I mean, all the narrators, they do a different voice, right, for the different characters, but the way he switches in and out, he sounds like a voice actor.
So, two funny notes is it looks like he did the Phil Kelly Farsight series. It looks like he narrated those books, so we're never going to hear those. Funny story, it looks like he narrated like the majority of the Tad Williams books. So like the Dragonborn Chair to Green Angel Tower, which I read forever ago. That's just really funny to me because that's really random. It's like, oh yeah, by the way, you remember that Tad Williams series that you read like literally forever ago? He did those too. Small world, I guess, for the audio guys. It makes me actually want to go and listen to it because I would love to hear that scene. That's one of my favorite scenes. Vrall is great. You hate him the second he walks in there, and I love how like honest he is about it too. Is he's just like, yep, nobody likes me. Nobody's gonna think that I was ordered to do this. They're just gonna think that, oh, it's just crazy Vrall again, and I'm good with it because I never liked these guys. Like,
honestly, and
damn, son.
Not just the sound effects that he did, but also when he does Zarl's "Why Won't You Just Die," it's quite amazing.
I feel like I need this in my life because obviously I absolutely adore Zarl as a character. Maybe my top favorite character in all of Warhammer 40k, but certainly in the top 5. I will not apologize for loving Zarl.
No, Syrian was my guy. He was my guy as soon as Talos was going to go visit the Exalted, and the Archimentaur were like, nope, you can't go in. And Syrian's like, okay. He goes, so, what you guys up to? Like, all right, just for that, you're now my favorite character.
That's another one of my favorite scenes is when Syrian finally grabs Zarl and is like, just listen to me. Please just listen to me. Mm-hmm. And when he describes the fact that Vandred and the Exalted both screamed at the idea and rebelled at the idea of waking up Malkarian. Zarl's reaction, probably my reaction too. Could have gone without knowing that.
Well, it like,
sounds terrifying.
Me too.
Well, because it harkens back to an earlier thing when Talos is like, you can't go in there with me. And he's like, I do not want to. Kind of harkens back to that. Now you're like, oh, that's why you don't like being around him. That makes some sense.
I just figure it's because he was disgusting. I mean, legit.
Fair. They're all just like, ew. Well, and I like the fact that even though Syrian has definitely got some Slaanesh warp stuff going on, even he is like, ew, no.
Yeah.
It's not okay. It's just a fun book. And I like that I think my favorite thing about this book is that he resists the urge to just straight up make them likable. They're fun and they're likable, but they're still terrible people.
That's fair.
They're still terrible. Like, you can like Talos, but recognize he's not a good guy. I love Zarl. He's one of my favorite characters. I don't want to hang out with him or be in the same planet as him.
Talos has pretty much brought on the Blood Angels hunting them down to the end of time.
Yeah.
And why did he take the sword? For funsies.
Pretty.
Now he kind of likes it, but at the same time, it's like, it was for funsies.
Again, like a magpie. Ooh, that's pretty.
Pretty much.
What a nice weapon.
It's like, oh wait, do you guys like this? Is this one of your like little trinkets? Cool, I want it now.
It's one of ours now. Was your sword. I absolutely love that about it, is that he does not resist the urge to sugarcoat them. Even when they're being nice. Even when they're being nice to their slaves. That slave-master relationship is never forgotten and never uneasy. They're never just like, hey, Septimus, how was your day today? Do you need to take the day off? Nope, not even a little bit. I think you see it most clearly when they're kind of joking around and they're like, so you gave my coin to a 10-year-old girl. They're trying to joke, but even
Right.
Septimus is like, this could go very bad very
Right.
quickly. I appreciate a book that can make you like characters who are not good people. These are not like, he doesn't give them really any of those lumps of sugar.
Right.
Other than the fact that they treat their slaves somewhat decently. That's their biggest lump of sugar.
And even then, it's only because resources.
And because Septimus is useful. I have a feeling if Septimus wasn't very useful, maybe not as kind of treatment.
Right. Well, anybody who is not useful, right? You're dead weight on the
Right.
ship. You're taking up resources.
Right. Do you know the other person who did that really well was Josh Reynolds in Apocalypse. We did not like the word bearers were bad people,
Yes.
but they were likable characters.
Yeah.
They were
Well,
enjoyable.
they were
fun to
enjoyable.
read
They
about.
were fun.
Yes. I think, and we've often said this about the Fabulous Bill series, he kind of skirts that edge sometimes. Of like spending 2/3 of the book of like, Bill's not a bad guy. He's really okay, fine. Here's some experimentation and some other horrible stuff that he's done. Okay. Anyways, but he's still kind of a nice guy. It's a little reluctant. This is very much, yeah, they're horrible.
Yeah. You don't want to have dinner with them.
No,
But-
I don't even want to be on the same planet with him. Do you know who else I friggin' love is Vorks? Do you not even want him in the same system as us?
Well, no, I like to have my
That was-
organs on the inside.
Spleen on the actually, you know what? It's not even that. As the further away we get from that book, it's when he talks about walking and hearing
The
him
sloshing?
slosh in his armor. No. We were in Massachusetts recently for hockey. It's quite humid in Boston, if you don't know. And my daughter was talking about how wet all of her gear was and how she was like, oh, it just feels wet on me. And I was like, but is it sloshing? Smells like it would be sloshing.
No, clothes should never be sloshing.
No. Anyways.
There's nothing worse than
wait a
sloshing
minute.
socks. No.
Oh, when your socks are wet, the only thing that's worse is when you have dry socks and you step in a small puddle, so then half your sock is wet, but
Yep.
the other half is dry, and it's like getting the edges of your sweatshirt wet when you go to wash your hands.
Mm-hmm.
Maddening.
It doesn't matter how little if part of my sock is wet, that sock's coming off. I need another sock.
Yeah, 100%. See, I'm not cut out for the Warhammer 40k universe. A wet sock has pretty much ruined my day.
Yes. Yes. 100%.
Like, I don't even need to get to the spleen on the outside or sloshing inside of my lungs. I was out with the socks.
Or the
And
Imperial Guard talking about how, sometimes they go months without showering or washing their uniform. I'm not cut out for that kind of life.
I'm not that hard. I'm just we're watching the Reacher show, and that actually bothers me as I'm like, where does the hobo take a shower? He's taken like one shower the whole series. I'm like, ew, we are modern humans. Please stop this. Anyways, what book do we decide to go with next? Are we doing Salamander or Yarick?
Yarick.
Yarick. So because we are still in nothing new is
Limbo.
coming out, and we don't want to make the same mistake we did with Fabulous Bill by reading all 3 of these books in a row, we're going to bounce over to Yarick. The omnibus just came out for a reprint.
Mm-hmm.
Let's dive in, read some David Annandale for
Yes, same
Old
cover,
Baelai.
which I find fascinating. It was like pretty much the exact same cover, just green instead of red.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, Old Baelai.
Why not?
Yeah. The first book
So we
came
will
out
read about Old Baelai.
10 years ago.
That sounds right. I remember reading the short story around then and just really enjoying it. So super excited
I've been
for
wanting
it.
to read Yarick since we read Gazkul Thraka, and of course ever since I saw Baelai, because that was the old Baelai, because that was just hysterical. And it'd be interesting to read a serious commissar. Much as I love Caiaphas Cain.
Yes, this one is going to be much more serious. So I'm excited to read them.
Got like a wrench for an arm.
Yeah. As you do
Yeah, I mean, fair.
in your old Baelai.
Yeah, that's true. That's fair.
Gazgul Thraka is going to burn the universe to get to Angron because Angron may have killed old Baelai. I personally think old Baelai is still alive because they believe he is. I'm excited for it. Obviously, maybe probably telegraphing a little bit. We'll probably end up reading the Salamander books as well.
We have
We got to look for stuff. So if
we-
you have suggestions
I mean,
for
we have
Wayback
a-
Machine books,
we have a bunch of omnibus that we own and haven't read through. Always meant to. So, yep. We're trying not to rebuy old books though. Just
correct.
kind of go through what we have. But if you guys have a suggestion that's, again, is not a Tau book.
Or the Eldari. I would like to avoid the Eldari.
Or the
if
Eldar.
possible. I'm just, God, you guys, especially if it's Harlequins. The Harlequins are pretty much nothing gets me to lose my attention quicker than the
And for some reason, we keep
Tau than the Harlequins.
we keep getting asked to read Age of Sigmar books, and that's not happening. So
it's Warhammer 40k book club.
Yeah,
not Warhammer Old World or
but
Sigmar.
we're not the Black Library book club.
That is true as well. Yeah. So as much as I would love to start breaking into some of their horror novels because they look pretty good, there's just too much that I would have to read up and understand on. So I'm going to stick with 40k for a bit. But I know there's a bunch of books. There's probably something out there lurking in the ether that we have not yet read. Sound off below. Maybe eventually someday I'll get Keri to want to dive into Gaunt's Ghosts.
No. I've already
20-book series for the win?
Okay. Horus Heresy might have broken me.
That's fair.
I've read 46 books, and then I have however many left of the Siege of Terra books, and then I can't do another series. And honestly, I'm not sure I could do any more Abnet than I have to. Which sucks.
This
to
is
say, but
some of it is like peak Abnet though. Like some of it, I would say a good 4 or 5 books are just peak.
And how's the other 10?
So the first 3 books are just like when he's green, so it's actually kind of fun to go back and be like, oh, you really sucked at one point. And then books 4 through probably 10 are pretty darn good. That 5 through 10 are just, oh. And then they kind of get a little weird, and then the series ends in a very Dan Abnett fashion. Anyways,
Time travel?
Grief Engines. No, I will never let go of Grief Engines. I just never will. I won't. I'm sorry. I'm going to take that one to my grave. Just still being bitter and angry about it. And he killed Broston. He killed my boy Broston. Can't forgive him.
Yeah, well, we'll see what he does to Pandemonium whenever that comes out in the next 10 years.
Where there's 6 whole chapters on numerology. Yay. Because we hate math and numbers.
Yes,
anyways.
we do hate math and numbers. So we're just dumb girls, guys. We don't get math. We don't get numbers. We know that this is about history and war and men and military, and we're just here along for the ride.
So thank you for joining us as we detailed the historical battle of Soul Hunter, which took place between the Allied forces and the Axis of Evil above Canada.
Sure.
World War II. Oh, you didn't know about the battle between the Axis of Evil and the Allies in Canada in 1947? Ugh, where have you even been? Anyways.
Reading real history, but regardless.
Never mind all that.
Right.
Chicks out there.
Yes, I sure will. So oh my God. Didn't want to, almost spilled my tea.
That would have been terrible.
No, because I would have been like, and we're done. Good night, everybody.
We're out. There's nothing else to say.
All right, so you've listened to the Warhammer 40k Book Club episode regarding Soul Hunter by Aaron Dembski-Bowden. Be sure to join us next time for Imperial Creed by David Annandale. We are an unofficial book club and not affiliated with the Black Library or any of its affiliates. You can find both the vidcast and podcast on our website, wh40kbookclub.com. If you like this episode, please like, subscribe, give a review, and all those wonderful things to the podcast on YouTube, or actually the vidcast on YouTube and the podcast anywhere, literally anywhere you get podcasts. Our site also has articles about our adventures in reading okay. I'm tongue-tied. Our site also has articles about our adventures in reading other Warhammer 40k books, so please stay a while and read from a crack. Yeah, I guess I'm Alfarius, even though I don't have my mug.
Ave Dominus Nox. Special shout out to Stephanie Batal. Batal? I think it's Batal. There's an E on the end and one L. Batal?
I like Batal.
Anyways, I like that too. It makes it sound very, very fancy. Ave Dominus Nox, brothers and sisters.
Good night, everybody.